Here's the full guide on how to create a K-pop track completely from scratch on FL Studio. Let's start by understanding exactly what is needed in a K-pop beat. K-pop is a huge genre and is full of tracks that are all completely different. For example, if we take the track Super Shy by Newjeans, we'll see that this has a fast tempo of 150 beats per minute, which uses a liquid drum and bass style of drum rhythm and has a soft, ethereal sounding melody. If we then take Blackpink's How You Like That, we'll notice the complete opposite. It has a slower tempo of 130 beats per minute, uses hard-hitting trap drums, and has a bold and almost aggressive sounding melody. Clearly, we can see that there is no exact formula or specific set of rules that has to be followed when creating a K-pop track. With that being said, there are a few general guidelines that can be followed when making these type of tracks, which I'm going to break down now. Let's start by using a tempo of 160 beats per minute. This is a great tempo as K-pop is known for its versatility, and this tempo will allow us to switch between a liquid drum and bass style and also a Jersey club bounce. But before we jump into the drums, we're going to create the melody. K-pop thrives on fun, catchy melodies. We don't want anything too dark sounding, so let's take a soft sounding key, which we can create by taking any key preset, routing this to a mixer track, adding a fruity parametric EQ2, selecting this 20Hz and 18kHz cut preset, and then adjusting this low pass filter so that it cuts out any frequencies above 1500Hz. This will get rid of all those harsh bright frequencies and leave us with a soft sound. Let's also cut out the muddy sub 100Hz sub bass frequencies. Now let's jump back into the piano roll and get working on the melody. Let's use the major scale for this track. We're going to use the key of F sharp major for this beat. So let's click up here to adjust our scale highlighting by going to View, Scale Highlighting, and changing the root note to F sharp and the scale to major. Now we can see all of the notes that we can use, as these are highlighted in the lighter grey tone. For this first chord, let's start on the second note in the scale, which is G sharp. Then let's draw the triad chord in, which contains the root, third, and fifth notes. Here, this is a G sharp minor chord. We're now going to turn this into a minor 7th chord by adding the 7th note, which is F sharp. We're also going to revoice this chord by shifting the G sharp up an octave. Now let's add an A sharp minor 7th chord in, which again contains the root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th notes in the scale. Finally, we're going to use a D sharp minor chord, shift the A sharp down an octave, and also add a D sharp in for the bass note. One quick tip, make sure to always adjust the velocities for your notes. This avoids them sounding computerized and harsh. All that this does is change the individual volumes of each note. And here's how this pattern will sound. Now let's layer this key pattern with other sounds. Layering is super important as it fills out the melody to stop it from sounding boring. Here I've taken this bell pad preset from Omnisphere and I've copied and pasted these chords in. We need something to make the chords sound more exciting, which is why I've added this top line melody. To do this, simply add a repetitive melody and play notes in the scale which complement the chord progression. Here's what I created. Now let's fill out the low end by adding a bass line. Typically in K-pop, this will either be an 808, short bass stab, or a soft Moog style bass. I've taken this preset here from Omnisphere and simply copied the root notes of the chords across. You'll notice that I've also shifted this D sharp up an octave at the end. Here's how this melody now sounds all together. Now, here's a secret tip that I don't see many producers using. Small textures and short hits and stabs are great for adding some movement and originality to your melodies. Here, I've added these texture effects from Omnisphere. We've got bells of apprehension and broken containment. All of these will play either the bass notes or top notes from the chords. We're not completely finished with the melody here, but we're going to add the drums before we finish the melody. The reason to do this is to avoid overdoing the melody and leaving no room for vocals. We need to have the drums down to hear if anything's missing. So let's add these drums in now. In my opinion, this is the most important part of a K-pop track. The drums are constantly evolving and changing from genre to genre as you change sections in quite a few different K-pop tracks. So let's do the same for this. We'll start the first 4 bars with a liquid drum and bass style of drums, which is simply this kick pattern and this clap pattern that plays on every other beat. And then we'll change the kick drum for the last 4 bars to a Jersey club bounce. Let's also add in some rolls and accent notes at the end of the 8-bar loop for the clap. This will help spice things up and add energy. Make sure to adjust the velocities to make these claps sound like they're rising or getting louder. Now let's add some accent notes with a new snare pattern. A hi-hat with some rolls. A triangle percussion sound. An open hat, and layer some new snare and drum fills in at the end of the pattern. And of course this snap, which is used in pretty much every Jersey club song. Another dope effect you can use is to automate delay to your drums. Here I've added this portal preset to the mixer track for the hi-hats. I've then right clicked on the mix level and created an automation clip. I can then increase the mix level of the portal towards the end of the 8-bar loop. Here's how this makes the hi-hat sound. And here's how the drums sound combined with the melody. In my opinion, this melody is still missing a little something. So I've decided to copy the exact melody across again with this arpeggiator pattern. I think this is exactly what this track needs to give it energy in the hook. I also added another arpeggiator, which alternates with the previous arpeggiator, and copied the bass line across and played a stabby bass pattern with a new preset which plays just before the hook. Here's how these patterns sound on their own. This is the first up. The second up, and the bass stab. For structuring the track, we want the majority of the elements playing during this hook, where all of the energy occurs. We then want to remove elements and add these back in as we switch through the track for the verse and pre-hook sections. To add more build up to the drops, we've also added these effects. We've got these sweeps, this riser from Omnisphere, this vocal, and I also automated the volume for the vocal whilst taking chops of the first syllable to fade this in. And I've also added this EQ to the master track, added a high pass filter using the 20Hz to 18kHz cut which we used earlier, and right clicked on the frequency for this filter, press create automation clip, and faded this up towards the drop, and then drop this back in. Essentially what this does is take out the bass frequencies as you're building up towards the drop, and then add the bass frequencies in just as the drop hits. Here's how these transition effects sound. For mixing and mastering, there's not too much that needs to be done. I don't want this beat to sound aggressive, so I won't use a soft clipper on the master. I will, however, use an Ozone 11 on the master to make this as loud as possible. One other important mixing tip for this track, where we use a kick alongside a bass, is to sidechain our kicks and our bass lines. This is simply done by going to the kick channel, right clicking on the bassline channel and clicking sidechain to this track. We can then open up a kickstart plugin and select the audio mode, as well as adding the sidechain input under the settings to ensure that the volume of the bassline ducks when the kick plays. There are other ways to do this, I just prefer to use kickstart too. Anyway, here's how the final track will sound. I hope you learned something in this video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe for more. Make sure to also drop any suggestions for my next tutorials in the comments below.